Today we'll discuss some trigger words or words that our society has deemed to be harmful. However, I believe they are extremely beneficial. And if you enjoy videos like this, please like and subscribe. It is extremely beneficial. But first, let's get to that first word. Attention. We constantly hear phrases like this. You're just doing it for attention, or he's always looking for attention from others. We hear it as if needing attention is a bad thing. And this is frequently labeled, particularly in the mental health field. People who attempt suicide or self-injure are frequently thought to be doing so for the sake of gaining attention. This is a bad thing. But what we forget is that we are biologically wired to connect with others. That is, we require attention in order to survive. Consider us as babies, right? We are the firstborn. We need to cry. To get the attention of our caregiver and have our needs met, we must make noise, whine, and do things. When our needs are met, say by our mother or father or whoever is caring for us, grandma or aunt comes to feed us. We look them in the eyes, and the sucking and swallowing of food relaxes our nervous system, and we feel close to our caregiver. That is extremely important for our development, attachment, and all sorts of mental health implications. Overreacting is the second trigger word. This is something we hear all the time. You're simply overreacting. We can even consider ourselves. I'm just being dramatic. We have all of these decisions. Again, assuming that overreaction is bad. Overreactions occur when our emotional response to something exceeds what the situation warrants. As a result, overreaction, right? I'm reacting more than I should be. The reason I like these and think they're great is that they hint at something bigger going on. Take a moment to recall the last time you overreacted, okay? Mine was only a few days ago. I was irritated with Sean and lashed out for no apparent reason. I overreacted because he was stumbling and I was hungry. I was starving. I was going insane. Low blood sugar causes me to become enraged. I went too far. Why? I was more vulnerable to my emotional reaction because I wasn't taking care of my basic needs. So consider it. An overreaction is simply a symptom of something else going on. It's an overreaction if someone cuts us off in traffic and we lose our minds. It does not make us bad people. It's just a matter of being curious about where that comes from. It is the information. People's desire to judge our emotions and reactions to life is something that always frustrates me, and I always believe it's useful information, right? When we're just being a detective about our experience, we can ask ourselves, hey, am I taking care of my basic needs? Is there something bigger at work? Or why am I so upset? Correct. Simply asking ourselves, why am I so upset by this, can be extremely beneficial. Also, I believe we can all agree that overreacting is unpleasant and that we dislike it. So assuming that we are overreacting on purpose or for some other reason is simply incorrect. It bothers us. I don't always feel like myself. I go about my business. And I'm like, oh my God, that just feels bad, doesn't it? And I'm embarrassed or ashamed of what I did, or I feel guilty about how I reacted. Sensitive is the third trigger word. You are being overly sensitive. That's not such a big deal. You're being overly dramatic. You're overly sensitive. Growing up, I was overly sensitive to those terms because I was constantly exposed to them. To be honest, I had no idea what that meant or how I could change it. So there was a lot going on instead of even trying to understand my sensitivities and learning that I'm a highly sensitive person or an empath who is also a people pleaser. Instead of doing that work, I decided to stuff it down, ignore those sensitivities, and act tough. And I became the most enraged, upset version of myself. And when I think back, there are even songs that remind me of that time. And I call those my dark years because they were difficult for me because I was too sensitive for the world. However, being sensitive can be extremely beneficial. Sensitivities indicate when a boundary has been crossed. You know that feeling when someone says or does something and you think ooh, or oh my God, or you can be like, I do this when I'm in a restaurant or a bar, and I've shared this with you guys before, and someone walks up behind me and touches my low back. I despise it. I enjoy roles like this. And a line has been crossed, I can feel it. My sensitivities indicate that this has occurred. Or if I'm watching someone else do something cringeworthy, it's because I'm anticipating how society will react. As a result, sensitivities are not a bad thing. They actually provide us with a wealth of useful information. It can also tell us where we might need to set an emotional boundary, right? If someone says or does something inappropriate and it hurts our feelings, we are sensitive to it. That can tell us that maybe we shouldn't let people treat us that way, or that we should say something, speak up, or set some boundaries or perimeters around what's okay and what's not. This can also be useful in situations where there are no boundaries or where we can feel affected by someone else's mood. All of this is revealed by sensitivities. Instead of shutting it down like I did when I was a teenager, stuffing it deep down and becoming a rage-filled human, I can instead acknowledge that it's happening and look for some reasons why. When I was being, quote, overly sensitive, it was actually my brain and body telling me that I was disconnected, hurt, or misunderstood. That kind of emotional reaction was actually telling me something I needed or something was wrong, and by paying attention to it and tapping into it, I was able to be empowered to make change or, communicate with someone or take action to feel more connected. But without that, I'm just left feeling disconnected, hurt, and upset. And I see being sensitive as a kind of superpower because I can read situations really well, which has been useful in relationships. For example, if Sean is acting strangely, I can check in with him politely. I'm not like, "What's the matter with you?" That isn't helpful, but I can tell you that you seem a little off. What's up? And I can avoid an argument or prevent it from happening by simply checking in to see if there's anything I can do. It's also extremely useful because it can detect differences in mood which are similar to bodily behavior. It has been extremely useful in my job. Overall, being sensitive has aided me in job interviews, meeting new people, and all of my online activities. And it could even imply that we're more inventive, right? Because we may notice the oddities of life or the small details of something beautiful. If someone has a very creative outlet, let's say they're a photographer or a filmmaker or, I don't know, a pottery artist, sculptor, or any number of other things. It's because they're sensitive, aware of their surroundings, and take in all the beautiful details. Anger is the fourth trigger word. Why are you always so irritable? Oh, your anger does not look good on you. We have a lot of preconceived notions about anger, and to be honest, I still struggle with it. I imagine anger to be out of control, dangerous, and upsetting, and I've spent my entire life pretending it doesn't exist, probably because I never had conflict in my house growing up. So I'm like, I have no idea how to deal with this. What does genuine conflict resemble? However, anger, like all of these other trigger words, can be extremely beneficial. I remember growing up thinking that because I was a lady, I couldn't be angry, and I don't mean that. I'm not making this a gender-based issue. But, in my experience, I grew up in a very traditional Christian household, and I'm not sure if it came from there or if it's something I interpreted, because I don't remember anyone telling me that ladies couldn't be angry, but I do remember this specific instance. We had moot court in middle school, I believe, and I was the judge. I remember keeping people in line and telling them they couldn't do it. And the objections were overruled, or something. And my teacher had said, and I don't know why this stuck with me forever, that if I had been a boy, it would have been great, and I would have been seen as a wonderful leader in the court, but because I was a woman, I could look somewhat like the B word, and I'm quoting him here. As a lady, I should keep that in mind. And it's never left me. Like, I always think that no matter who we are, anger is beneficial, and whether we're a guy or a girl, we should be able to express it in a healthy way. Standing your ground and being firm is not an expression of anger, nor is it inappropriate. And because anger is a secondary emotion, it is extremely beneficial. This means that it is masking another emotion. Anger is the second character to appear on the scene. The first emotion that usually appears is something like hurt, upset, disconnection, vulnerability, or anything that makes us feel a little bit like our soft, squishy middle, right? I'm always talking about puffer fishing. If our spines are in that soft, squishy part of ourselves, that is the first emotion to appear. And it's usually something means we're going to get hurt. Oh, we're so squishy and soft. Danger. We shoot our spines out, and those spines are filled with anger. So the emotion arrives, and the secondary emotion is anger, which is protective. That's why it's so useful, not only in therapy, but in life, to recognize that instead of stuffing my anger and letting it run wild in my life, as I used to do. If I can admit it, I'm really angry about this. This irritates me greatly. I'm curious, what else am I going through? Do I feel particularly vulnerable right now? Do I truly feel disconnected? Misunderstood? Has anyone done anything to hurt my feelings? Have I not been clear? If I can ask myself those questions, I know that sometimes when we're angry, we can't and must just let it pass, but taking the time to reflect and think about the true emotion will help us be more grateful for the anger. Because, once again, anger protects. It is coming to our aid to ensure that our feelings are not further hurt or that we are not further misunderstood. As a result, we acknowledge it, thank it for its contribution, and then allow ourselves to feel what is truly going on. I swear to you, it's difficult. It's like developing a new muscle. It's similar to the first time you tried Pilates. And you're like, I had no idea that muscle existed. That's how it is. But doing that work changes your life. And another layer of that work, which I'm still working on, is getting to know my anger. When will it appear? And it can manifest itself in a variety of ways, right? So, why is it now passive-aggressive rather than outwardly aggressive? How come I'm lashing out at someone I've never met? For example, if I'm just curious about the anger itself, where it's coming from, what it looks like, and, more importantly, what it feels like, I'll be able to navigate it better in the future. Perhaps I should manage my triggers. What triggered my rage? Why am I so upset? Did I get enough sleep? Is this a form of self-care? Isn't it true that I'm not doing my halt? Am I particularly hungry? So I'm retaliating. The more I pay attention to it rather than ignore it, the better I will be able to manage it. The most effective way to transition into healthier ways of expressing our anger. Many of you are probably thinking, oh, I'll go to a rage room and break shed or just cause chaos and scream around my house. According to research, doing such things only serves to amplify our rage. I know you're not going to like this answer, but communication and connection are healthier ways to express our anger. Because, once again, our rage is secondary. So, once we identify the primary emotion, we can do things to help ourselves feel better, to soothe, and to provide us with what we truly require. I hope this was useful. Society frequently tells us that certain things are bad when, in my opinion, they are actually good. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you again soon.